Welcome to episode 3 of Leading Out Loud. In this insightful conversation, Dr. Jill Clark shares her journey in veterinary medicine, focusing on leadership, staff development, and industry innovation. Discover her pioneering work with the VRCE program, her leadership philosophy, and her dedication to elevating veterinary professionals. Well, thank you so much. I want to introduce Dr. Jill Clark joining us today. And your background is beautiful, by the way.
Thank you. That's real, actually.
You're so lucky. You know, with these filters, they have these beautiful filters now. It's hit or miss. Some days it recognizes I have hair, and so it'll give me a decent background. And then other days, I can't use a filter because it thinks I'm bald. I don't know why, but at least you have that beautiful background. With that said, of course, if you don't mind kind of just catching me up, where are you focusing your energy and time these days?
Well, Ignite is the company I founded in 2016. So we really are looking at being pioneers in veterinary learning. And my role right now with Ignite, which I love so very much, is new product development. And it's been absolutely a blast, Bridget, to create things that didn't exist currently in the veterinary space and that elevate our veterinary teams and veterinary practices. You and I both been in hospital operations, and I think that really gets us a leg up on what really will make a difference for the practices versus just a more esoteric kind of education. So I've got a couple of new products coming out in 2026 here that are going to be really, really fun to launch and see how practices utilize them. Too close to mention it right now to the launch, but that's really where I'm spending my time, trying to think of things that solve pain or problems for veterinary practices through learning.
I love that. What I really respect about you, I mean, the list can go on, but I'm going to keep it tight, is really you are one of those people that I feel like identifies an issue or an opportunity. And instead of being a person that just complains about it and it is what it is, and we're going to complain about the same issue every day of the year, you go out and you have that mindset of, well, how do we fix it? What is the solution? And that kind of leads me to the segue. If you don't mind, I'd like to talk more about the VRCE program because again, from my vantage, we have needed this. And as far as I'm aware, you're one of the first people to actually provide a solution for the industry. So let's dive in. Let's talk about the program for those that don't know. But then also, was there a specific moment or experience that was like a eureka moment for you where you realized the front desk role needs more attention?
Oh, yeah. And I remember that moment like so specifically because I was working with another hospital group and doing this very large study. And CSRs were kind of core to that. So I had a cohort of about 1,200 CSRs, and they were chosen to be the best of the best, right, by the regional teams and such, and which was fabulous. And so I listened to over 1,000 calls from a customer inbound calls, customer to CSR at practices, general practice, specialty practice, ERs. And Bridget, I went home crying every night after listening to those. And it wasn't because these people had malice or weren't intelligent. It was just the bind that we put them in, not giving them the autonomy to actually book an appointment, making them ask 1,000 questions that are meaningless to them to go back to the medical team and say, can I book this appointment? Or trying to listening to a technician say something and trying to, to mirror that, not knowing what the words mean and causing potential harm to a pet. And at the end of the day, it all came down to a lack of training and a lack of valuing that position. The other piece that came out of that study for me personally was that it's like I kind of relate it to Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. You click your heels 3 times. You had the power all along and you didn't know it. And that's how I feel about CSRs. They have such a much, much bigger role to play in veterinary practices, but we just can't see the forest for the trees for that to happen. So when I started Ignite, that was always on the roadmap to create a in-depth, real certificate program for CSRs. We in veterinary medicine seem to be just smitten with watch a video or a webinar and take a test and call it good, by golly. But neuroscience tells us that the forgetting curve and all these other pieces that come to play, don't let that be effective typically, or stick with us. VRCE is rigorous. It's 40 hours. There's a lot of work that they have to do. They have to do an observation checklist and demonstrate those skills to a superior. They have to do all kinds of reinforcing activities, translate theory into their particular practice. And I can't tell you how many people said it'll never work, Jill. People aren't going to spend the money on CSRs. We've never done that before. That's a transition role. They're really just looking to get into a dental practice or a human health care. And I have trouble enough getting people to do things. They'll never go through a program that long because it takes us about 13 weeks for them to go through. I was like, well, I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway, right? So we did, and we have over 5,500 CSRs in our program and over 1,000 graduates as of December 31st of 2025. So that number is climbing. So they are doing it, and people are paying for that for their CSRs. And CSRs, I can't tell you the absolute depth of gratitude that CSRs are once they get some letters behind their name, because we have VRCE, we put as a designation for that work that they've done. And they're like, I can't believe I've always wanted letters by my name. Now I have it. People are treating me different. My doctors, now that I have no veterinary terminology, my doctors are treating me differently at the front desk. I'm being allowed to do more. I'm more competent, especially when it comes to finances, Bridget. These guys are saying it used to terrorize me. And after I learned how to have financial conversations, now it has a new place in my mind and I'm comfortable with it. So that was where it started, and that's where it's gotten to. And and then that, of course, spun off the North American Association of Veterinary Receptionists nonprofit that I started with Debbie Boone and Rhonda Bell. And so it keeps rolling on, and I really think we're in the middle of a movement.
Yeah, it really resonates with me. I kind of think to where I started out, right, like decades ago. And it was in the kennels, but my first hospital was a private practice. It was family owned. The father handed it down to daughter, et cetera, et cetera. And at that time, and to be fair, I'm talking about probably over 30 years ago, I felt like in my experience, CSRs, it was actually a career. So in that hospital, we had individuals that were in that role for 10, 12, 15 years. It was their job. They were happy there. They were well trained and equipped. And of course, things evolve and change, and we've seen it in our own industry. And it has gotten to that point where I think we lost sight of the value of this person on the team. And again, we have to remember, yes, your veterinarian, is doing a certain job. And then it was like the next focus was the technicians, and we need them to be skilled. But I think, lo and behold, we forgot about the front desk. And in my opinion, it's the first person you see as a client. It's the last person you see as a client. It is the voice of your clinic more often than not, because they're the one answering the phone. They can be the gatekeeper. They can be the person that changes the trajectory of a pet and a pet parent's experience ultimately. And I think, to your point, you saw the fact that we weren't educating them. We weren't taking a second to give them the resources to know how to handle these conversations. And then, when you mentioned the study and listening to these calls, I was already picturing a train wreck, just from my own experiences. And again, it's no fault of the person, because they're thrown into, okay, good luck. Maybe you had an hour or two of shadowing the person that's been there the longest. Who even knows if they're the best person to teach? And then you're left to kind of swim on your own.
Absolutely. And I think that another thing that's changed from when we talk about our early days in veterinary medicine to now is that the client experience has become the competitive advantage for practices. It's the best way for an independent practice to compete against a large hospital group. And it used to be your size of your building or how much equipment you had, or, what special interests your doctors had. And now the clients want a great experience. And to put that with the people where it belongs, which is the CSR team, they really can drive an amazing client experience and create journey maps. And I mean, some deep knowledge in that versus just smile when you answer the phone, which is kind of where a lot of education goes. And there are certainly practices that are progressive that are doing some amazing education for them. But by and large, I think it's inconsistent. And as we know, when you come on board, you get trained by somebody typically in the practice, and whatever their gaps become your gaps.
Right.
So there's no foundation for them to have a broad knowledge. And that's where VRCE fills in the gaps. And I think it does a good job, whether you've been in practice 35 years or you've been, we're doing something else yesterday and come into our great profession. Really, there's always going to be something someone learns from that maybe they didn't on the job training.
Yeah. Ask you this, because I've actually encountered it a number of times. How would you respond to a leader that worries, quote unquote, if I invest in the training, they're just going to leave me?
Oh my gosh, I hear that every day. And I'll tell you that, and I don't have time for training are the two that
Yes.
are probably the very most. But if someone says I don't want to invest because they'll leave, they're going to leave you if you don't invest in them. All the data right now across all industries, not veterinary medicine exclusively, but people want to be developed. And if you can't develop them, they're going to leave. And why wait to have a more capable and competent employee just to see if are they really serious? Are they going to leave me or not? I mean, if we continue to worry about that and not develop people, I think we're already setting ourselves up for that person to fail, but also for you to, in your eyes, for you to see them as a failure. So invest in them, treat them well. The second reason that people leave beyond if they aren't developed is because of their supervisor. They don't have respect or feel like they're being valued by their supervisor. So train them early, get them excited about your practice, get them knowledgeable so they can succeed and not be in a pressure cooker of, I don't know, but everyone wants me to know.
Right.
And then treat them well.
Yeah.
It's nirvana, right?
Yeah. And I would argue, and I have argued with those leaders that have kind of tried to resist, providing resources for the team. And my logic has been similar of, you have to invest in your people, especially it's been my experience that people are hungry to learn. They want to do a good job. The culture is what will keep them.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And in general, I have this one of my principles is treat each employee like you're preparing them for the next job, and it may not be with you. So along my life, and I think this kind of goes to this question, prepare them for the next job, treat them with respect, grow them. And if they stay with you, that's a wonderful thing. But if they move on, at least they'll say, hey, when I was with Ignite, I got so many skills that I was able to move forward, and it was a wonderful place to work. Us being so greedy with our appreciation and with our development is really will only turn out bad.
Yeah, I agree. Let me ask you this. In your experience, especially because I feel like you have worked so closely with CSRs and really obtained some very valuable information that maybe a solo practice that only has 3 CSRs doesn't have access to that on such a large scale or scope. What do you think usually causes a CSR to disengage and maybe even exit the profession?
Well, I am really blessed because we have the large number that are in VRCE and then our growing population at NAVR. And it's clear that they want to be in this profession. They want to do a good job. But let's just think a minute. You put somebody in veterinary medicine, you don't teach them our language, you put them in with some other CSRs that maybe are good or bad, whatever it may be, and they get modest training. We have clients coming in with high emotions about their pets. I mean, mine are laying here, but I would do anything for my animals. So high emotions. We're asking them to be financial, consultants with people, and we're not training them. So I mean, I wouldn't stay either. If you think about it, really, here you go. You're in a pressure cooker of high emotions, potentially other employees that don't value you or think your role is entry level, and so therefore it's not as valuable as the rest of the team. And I think we put them in a really, really bad position with no way out.
Yeah. And then we're shocked that they're failing, that they're not doing a good job.
And here's something I'll tell you that really breaks my heart, but it's something I'm really trying to change as others. And let me just say, when I say I'm talking about CSRs are training me. I'm not bestowing any knowledge. All these CSRs I get to hang out with are training me. But the heartbreaking thing I hear over and over again is in our group, and even Debbie Boone, my partner in NAVR, CSRs will say, this is the first time I've ever been told I was important.
Yeah.
I mean, Let that sink in.
Right.
Somebody's been in the CSR for years and they come to a Naver track at Fetch or VRCE coaches, talk to them and say, you're important. And they're like, I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why do we do that to somebody in our, aren't we supposed to be empathetic and compassionate in our profession? And so that has to carry over to our people, no matter what their role is.
Yeah. Well, I also feel, part of that, just thinking back, and sometimes it is nice to have so much experience in one industry because you were part of the evolution or you saw things change. To some degree, I almost feel like there has always been, and rightfully so, such a hyper focus on medical skill and training and talent that we only recently started recognizing the soft skill side. And that kind of correlates to your recognition of how the client experience has changed and what the client is looking for now, even at every level, even the technician, even the veterinarian, to focus and develop those soft skills of how do I have a difficult conversation? How do I talk about money? How do I explain an estimate in a way that is meaningful to a lay person that maybe doesn't have a medical degree or background to understand what all these words are on the estimate? And then we're shocked that they're turning down the services because we're not breaking it down in a way that is meaningful to that pet parent, let's say.
Well, and they're not comparing us to other veterinary hospitals. They're comparing us to Starbucks and other big brands. And so for us to sit in veterinary medicine and say, well, we're just that good that, you should trust us without offering a reasonable experience for those clients, in this day and age, it won't fly.
Yeah.
Right. So that's changed. I think the customer has changed. And so therefore the client experience has to change. And these guys, I mean, small things make a big difference. And we call it moments of magic in our training. And it's called that elsewhere also. But, you don't have to do everything perfect, but you have to do one or two things really well that surprises or delights your customer in order for them to feel like that was a wonderful experience. And so letting people know what that looks like and what the boundaries are certainly beats putting someone in front of a client who's angry and upset with no skills to handle conflict. And by the way, we all know this about ourselves, but veterinary people tend to be conflict adverse.
Yes.
And so here we hire people, a whole group full of people that feel conflict is the end of the world. We don't train them, and then we put them in front of a client who's questioning aggressively a bill or is emotionally upset about a diagnosis. No training. So there's no way to have a great client experience if we can't negotiate how to make it through those tough points.
Yeah. There was a period of time that I was a CSR way back in the day, kept the animals alive in the kennel, did a good job cleaning. So it's like, well, let's see how she does client facing. And I remember this. And again, I was with very experienced CSRs that I'm grateful in hindsight that they taught me the right way, if you will, or a good way of interfacing. And what I would do is I would look at the schedule and see who's coming in next, who's going to enter the lobby. And I would go so far as to say, well, what type of dog is this? Or is it a cat? So when they came through the door, I would say, is this Fluffy? And I can't tell you how meaningful the way the client would light up that you even guessed the name right.
Oh, Bridget, how many times, and this was part of that study, and it's no fault of their own, right? How many times you would listen to a call and the client would say, hey, I'm going to make an appointment for Nigel. And they go, oh, has Nigel ever been here before? Well, Nigel's got file number 003. Yeah. Nigel's been there, but it's a new employee that doesn't know that. And automatically you've just broken the bond. It's like you go into the same hairdresser for years. And every time you walk in the door, she goes, hey, have you ever been here before? But it would just make you so crazy.
Yes.
So those kinds of tips and tricks they just bring this whole thing together. But we all need to know what those are and how to navigate, how to, like you're saying, maybe it's not a husky, it's not the husky named Bobo, it's some other, but your great thing is you go, oh my God, you look just like Bobo is going to be here in just a minute. They's so handsome, blah, blah, blah. So there's so many ways to make it out of those.
Yeah.
But we need to practice that, role play that, and understand how to navigate those situations for success.
Let me ask you this. You've mentioned it a few times. So if you don't mind, I want to dig in a little more about the North American Association of Veterinary Receptionists that you founded. I mean, again, here you are, superwoman to many, founding a whole national association. So tell me about that.
Well, it became clear this evolution of me and CSRs, me becoming an evangelist for CSRs
Right.
has came from the study. And then I worked with VRCE. And then it became clear that we needed to have a nonprofit
Okay.
that was geared towards advocacy for this role, because it wasn't just going to happen on its own. We could train 1,000 CSR people and have them graduate like we did, or we could do all these other things. But unless there was a way to get people together and get the power of CSRs as a group, and then try to go out to state, local, and national conferences and get CSR tracks, which we did. Fetch, I just got to give DVM 360 props, because Fetch was the first one to raise their hand and say, we're in, help us come up with that track, and you put it where you want it, and it was so effective, Bridget, that they started us in this little room, August of 2024 in Kansas City, and we had people fill up that room, out the hallway, and down the hall. This last year, we did the same thing, and they moved us rooms straight away because our room was too full of CSRs.
Yeah.
So that came, and then I got Debbie Boone, she's a powerhouse woman. I tried to get her together, and then I wasn't together. And then about a year later, I was like, okay, Debbie, we got to do this.
Yeah.
Even if it's not perfect, we got to do this. And so we founded that. Now we have around 700 as of today. We have about 700 CSRs that are in the association, and it's growing, and we have a strong community, and we're advocating, like I say, in learning tracks and other things. And I think future state for NAVR would be similar to what VHMA has done for the CVPM, where we have an actual governing body and testing and that sort of thing, so that we can have a legitimate designation for these folks that have gone through rigorous training, and it'll probably be beyond what anyone expects the CSRs would be able to do. But that's on our forward plan.
Wow. I mean, honestly, I have to really applaud you, and I hope the leaders that might be listening to this can see the value you are providing to the industry by really giving the time and energy to the CSRs, giving them that career path that I think had been forgotten, and recognizing you don't have to go somewhere else. You don't have to want to become a technician, or like you can be a phenomenal CSR. And, I talk a lot, and this came from Sean McVay, right person, right seat. And that I can't not say it, because it was so meaningful that you're right. Sometimes you are just a phenomenal CSR, and that's where you should be highlighted and shine and do your best work. And I love that you are providing the credentials and the community for these individuals, so they don't feel like, oh, I'm the oddball, nobody trained me, but I'm supposed to do a great job, right? They have somewhere they can go.
Yeah, and they're a powerful group. They are so uplifting. We have a community, a private community, safe space for them, and they are just uplifting each other and sharing ideas. Because we're in North America, we have some Canadian people in there as well, and they do things quite differently. So we're learning down here in the US. I'm looking to make sure that we get our Mexico hospitals also involved.
Sure.
Also, we're truly North American, but learning from each other in a safe space that's intentional. It's not a place where you're supposed to go in and complain. It's actually a space that you're going to go in and solve problems. Has been just an incredible, just so much gratitude for those people that are in there.
Yeah, and just embracing it and participating, because again, it's great that you have helped be a founder to these things and you're providing it, but also we need them to want to participate and contribute for it to be successful. And it sounds like that is what's happening.
And our board is hell-bent, as I am, on replacing ourselves with CSRs. I mean, we want this to be run by CSRs going forward. We're just trying to do all the work that nobody wants to do, like bylaws and legal stuff, and just getting all this stuff done with the IRS and the not fun part. But once we have that in good place to hand it off, it will be a CSR managed association.
I love that. Now, you touched on this briefly, and I'd like to dig in a little deeper, because to me, it speaks to the type of leader that you are. And, whether or not you fully recognize, you are known as one of those leaders who supports people, even when their career paths might lead outside of your own organization. And I'm just curious, and especially for maybe a novice leader listening, where does that philosophy stem from for you?
Pretty much my whole life is a specific instance that caused some light bulb to go off. But I was managing practices and I had a young doctor who had so much potential. And she had an issue and I had to terminate her. And I was a people pleaser and I really didn't, it was the most horrible thing in the world. And I sweated and carried on for 2 or 3 weeks trying to figure out how to do it and do it. And I fired her with cause. She ran out of the room and I thought, oh my gosh, she's going to get a gun or so. Like, I didn't know what was going to happen. I just know she left the building, raced off, didn't say anything, just left. Came back with her dad and her dad's attorney. And I sat there and talked to them about why it happened. And when I laid it out, the father, who was also a medical doctor, he said, we're done here. Thank you. And left. And it scared me to death. But about 6 months later, she called me and she said, Jill, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. I wouldn't have changed my medical thinking or my desire to get more information about different things medically had you not done that, and invited me to her wedding.
Yeah.
So at that moment, I realized that the feedback I gave her was actually life-saving. I was helping her far more materially by being honest with her than what we tend to do sometimes as leaders, which is like just avoid a problem until they get so bad that we just blow up. So what I realized was that feedback to her was what was almost life-saving to her as she described it. And so from that day forward, I thought, I'm going to always be honest with people. And if that will help them, even if they leave me, if that will save them from angst and whatnot in their next position or make them more attractive as a new hire for someone else, that's a really good thing I could do. And so I really, really live by that. And even our employees at Ignite, I tell them, hey, for the future job, you might look, you're young. I'm nearing the end of my career, but for your future, you need to have this skill. And they're like, are you firing me? I was like, no, I'm just trying to develop you because I know one day you will be someplace else. We move jobs a lot and I want you to be as attractive as possible to that next employer. So that's where it came from. And that girl and her dad and the attorney really helped me kind of have a pivot that was so dramatic that it really changed me materially. Whereas if she'd just gone, okay, fine, you fired me, I might not have gotten there. So she made me better too.
Yeah. And also what a terrifying, I applaud you for even being able to handle the conversation. I probably would have ran out after she came back with the dad and the lawyer.
It was intriguing, but I didn't have a chance. Like it was me and nobody else, right?
Yeah.
Who was I going to call to help me?
You had to own it. That is something that I hope to touch on more in this series. Really, the clear is kind. As Brene Brown says, we do recognize as leaders, and in particularly in vet med, you've mentioned it, the conflict avoidance. And it's like you have all these brilliant people in one room and nobody is willing to engage in conflict. And, we view it as a negative thing, but that's not. I think what's more negative is not addressing the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
If you are respectful and professional and approach these things in as kind of a manner as possible while still being transparent, so don't sugarcoat it to the point that the person doesn't even know what you're saying, I think that is the best thing you can do for any person that you work with, peer or direct report alike, is be authentic and be transparent.
And conflict doesn't have to be scary. As a matter of fact, you can almost, and this sounds like maybe crass, but I almost make a game out of it because conflict doesn't have to be win-lose. And I think that's where we're used to conflict. It either results in someone wins, someone loses, and haha, you lost, right? Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be that way at all. Like Jason Troutwine's perfect example of this, and he's been a great mentor for me, is win-win should really be your goal with conflict. So if you take that mindset when you go into it and you let your opponent, which is not a right term, but the person that you're having conflict with, know that like my goal here is to get to win-win. So are you on board with me? Like, how can we get there? Yes. And that's where your emotions, you can put them in a box because you go, okay, we just took this from win-lose to win-win. And so let's muddle through this. Back to Sean McVeigh, he talks about a lot, and I see it a lot, that veterinary people will, if someone says, Bridget, I don't like the way that you did so-and-so, the telephone line back to the rest of the team is Bridget, or Jill yelled at Bridget.
Yes.
right? I wasn't actually yelling on it. I was
Right.
just being frank. So if we can reposition
Yeah.
conflict, it can be really, like I said, not fun, but it can be a puzzle to be put together.
Yeah.
How do we make it win-win?
And I also think, similar to the CSRs, it requires training, which is often lacking. On another episode, I was talking with a colleague of mine, and we were talking about our memory of when we were first made a manager. I remember I was a tech recovering a patient, and the owner was like, "Oh, you're it," because the other person's going out on maternity leave. And I was like, "Are you sure you know what you're doing? Like, I don't know what I'm doing." And unfortunately, though, that's often what happens, just like with a CSR, where it's like, okay, good luck. And you have all these expectations, but we're not taking the time to provide the training and resources. And I will say, John really changed my life a lot with respect to teaching me those soft skills, especially about conflict, that
Yep.
again, it's not something to be afraid of. And the more you do it, you become more skilled and it becomes more comfortable of providing what I would call that constructive feedback that is helpful to everyone versus, under your breath, oh God, they're doing it again. Well, they don't know that it's wrong if you can't tell them.
Well, and you bring in a big point. Practice, you wouldn't do one spay and say you're great at that.
Right.
But every time you do more and more and more, you get better and better, and it's
Yeah.
easier, and you don't even think about it at
Yeah.
some point in time. It just, you just go in, you do it, and you could be talking to someone or doing something else, and you do a really good job. And so that's why you'll see it like in VRCE, just jumping back to VRCE, it's got a lot of role playing. It's got a lot of people submitting videos of them doing certain tasks or skills because we have to practice it.
Yeah.
And that's what gets lost in training. That's just, I'm going to lecture to you. Good luck.
Yes.
We don't get any practice, and we need to practice on these things are hard. We call them soft skills, but we've got to coin a better term for that.
Yeah.
Put it out into the universe because it's just not accurate. They're critical skills for survival and for your mental health. I mean, I know our profession suffers deeply in that regard, and I wonder what role conflict avoidance and not being truthful to each other and all this other stuff plays in that. And I would suspect it's rather large.
Yes, absolutely. Well, as you may or may not be aware, the last 6 years I have focused my PhD study on mental health in veterinary medicine. And time and again, that has surfaced that the types of individuals, just high levels, people with a very high IQ, which are typically science and math minded people who are typically veterinarians and in the veterinary profession, struggle with the emotional side of conflict and being an advocate for yourself and vocalizing even your own boundaries. And that does contribute significantly to both compassion fatigue and burnout, which are variables that lead to much worse things. And so you hit the nail on the head, Jill. It is something that I will continue to talk about, in episodes to come, but it's something we need to recognize that we are smart people. We have the resources available. We have to take control and start participating and practicing some of these skills we weren't taught. And at the end of the day, it makes you a better rounded human being, not only for work, but how about your family, your spouse, your loved ones, in terms of even engaging with individuals outside of the workplace?
Yeah, no, I'm excited to see your work.
Thank you. Well, we're close. It has been painful. It is 6 years. It is time. So I am very close. And yes, definitely will share that because this is the industry I've done that work for. Let me ask you this, reflecting on your own journey within veterinary medicine and all of the life experiences you've had thus far, what has this work taught you about leadership?
Well, I learned kind of late in my leadership career the value of the word no, which I think is probably the most powerful thing that could have happened to me. There's been a lot, but leadership success is really what you say no to, not what you say yes to. And I didn't have that word in my vocabulary for a long time. It was always, sure, yes, okay, I'll do that, whatever. And I left veterinary practice from burnout. It wasn't called that at the time, but that's what it is. And that's how I ended up in industry. But the power of no would have saved me from that. Had I known that I needed to put some parameters and guardrails around myself and just make sure that clients and team and everybody there was focused time for them and it wasn't just all the time. And I think as leaders too, saying no to things, you know, in Ignite, and this is something Mark Shaw's really reinforced, and I appreciate him for that. But we get all excited about a new product or new thing, and we have to be realistic and say, do we really have time for that? Is that really going to be high value for us? And I've learned to go, doesn't look like it to me. Let's not do it. I think it's something that a lot of leaders aren't comfortable with. It's like, let's just push the team to the end. Just go guys, you can do it. You can do more work. Why can't you do that? You can't do it well. So I'd rather do a few things really well and really focused, and knows the only way that you can get there.
Yeah. And don't be apologetic about it.
No, it's just, no, I don't want to do that. That's something I can do owning my own business. I mean, it's a little easier for me to have that position because I own, you know, my own business. Whereas if I worked for others, you know, maybe I'd have to fall under that umbrella of yes, that they believed in. So, you know, everyone's got to find their no wherever it may be. But gosh, it sure makes your life easier and far more enjoyable.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just curious. We talk in business a lot about core values, goals, mission, vision as a roadmap, if you will. And in some of the lectures I've given, you know, I even share with individuals that I have my own core values, and that's something that I'm able to kind of pressure test with maybe entering a new group that I may work for or with. And it's a litmus test, if you will, to be able to say, we're not aligned. So that's a no for me. Do you have a similar set of core values or something, pillars, if you will, that guide you, would you say?
Well, I'll tell you that Ignite, we have core values and we live or die by them. We hire by them.
Yeah.
We live by them. We have a attraction meeting. We're attraction fanatics, but we live and die by those core values. And it makes life, again, simpler. Like the no, everyone, you know, knows what they are. And we can say in our attraction meeting, hey, you know, we didn't ask for help when we need it. It's one of ours, right? Well, you know, so-and-so, you didn't ask for help when you need it. We got to get back to that.
Yeah.
What can we do now to help you get that project done or whatever it may be?
Yeah.
We treat work as play is another one of ours. And so when we're getting too serious, it's like, wait a minute, guys, time out. We treat work as play. Like, how can we get back to the joy of this particular project? So being able to have core values that you can, I agree with that. I was hired by that. When they interview with Ignite, core values are forefront. And yeah, I can live with that. Or no, if they can't during the interview, they sure can't when they join.
Yeah.
So that's how we've really, really embraced that. And I think it's proved us extremely well.
You know, with your experience and knowledge, what advice, if any, would you give to leaders that might be listening today?
Any advice I have came from other people helping me. So that's maybe the advice, is that if you don't have a mentor, find a mentor. And a mentor could be, like for me, CSRs. It doesn't always have to be somebody high up on some pillar. It can be almost anyone. And realize that wherever you got in life or business or whatever it may be, it was on the backs of a lot of different people. And so having that sense of gratitude every day, and, you know, calling those people, I like to call people out of the blue and go, hey, you might not know this, but back in so-and-so, you really shaped me in this way or that way. And I just want to thank you for it. And there's just something wonderful about that moment for them and for you.
Yeah.
But just have a sense of gratitude, because we're all so fortunate to be part of veterinary medicine or whatever profession that you're in. If you love it, you're fortunate. And the people that got you there need to be recognized and, you know, give that feedback back to them.
That's great. Yeah. And, you know, I do think it's all too often that for those in leadership or mentorship roles, in the everyday, you're triaging the bad, the fires, the issues, what's not working, the complaints. And I do think it's rare that you have someone reach out that's not looking for something from you, literally just wants to say, hey, thank you. Or I remember this moment in time, and you may not realize it, but it changed my life, or it was meaningful to me. And the power in that is huge, truly.
And then be that person for as many other people as you possibly can. Another area that I'm passionate about is elevating women in veterinary medicine.
Yes.
You know, here we are, a majority female profession with a majority male leadership bodies in hospital groups and so on and so forth. So, you know, trying to lift up those younger women that come behind you and I, is vital because they need to succeed and stand on different ground than, we had to fight for. And I don't mean to be dramatic here, but,
It's pretty accurate, Jill.
I learned a lot being one of the few women on the executive team at one of the companies I was with, and in a good way.
Yeah.
But it wasn't easy. And so if we can make the path easier for women that come into this industry and do want to take a leadership role of some sort, or just a great veterinarian, I think we're obligated to do so.
I could not agree more. And in the spirit of what we've just talked about, I want to share with you, and you probably don't even remember this situation that arose many, many years ago when I had the privilege of working a little more closely with you. And I will say, for me, as a woman in leadership, you're kind of searching for people that you can emulate. And I think it's natural and organic. And you have always been somebody, not only are you just all around a badass human being, but you have always been somebody that what struck me was the way within which you hold your presence in a room, in a Zoom meeting, what have you. And what I mean by that is I have perceived you as calm, articulate, soft-spoken. You're not yelling, but when you speak, there's power in your words where you don't have to be the loudest voice in the room, but people are listening to what you're saying. And I'll never forget, it was early on. I had made a mistake. I was trying to be funny, shared some information with a group of people. Someone came back, and kudos to them for providing their feedback where they were offended by something I had said in an email or what have you. And somehow, I can't even recall, somehow you and I were talking about this, and I think I was like near tears. And I remember you were just so calm, and you were like, well, did you mean it in the way the person took it? And I was like, no, oh my God. And you're like, well, then who cares? You're fine. And I just remember I've carried that with me to this day, where just how calm you were. And it was like, you're right. Why am I letting one person receive information in a certain way that unfortunately offended them, which was not my intention, and allow it to spiral me out of the person that I am? And, again, it's to share that impact that you've had, not only on myself, but I'm sure countless of others. And I know even some of our friend group, our mutual friends, we talk about you, Jill. And it's literally like, how do I emulate her? Like, how do I become as badass as this person? So thank you, maybe even unknowingly, but thank you for being a genuine trailblazer and for probably positively impacting more people than you know.
Wow. Well, first, it's an honor to hear those words. And it means so much to me to be able to make any sort of positive difference. I feel the same about you. I think you come to a point in your life where you have enough, and that could be any point in your life, right? You're not trying to impress anyone. You feel like you've kind of accomplished what you thought you want to accomplish. And it's the most wonderful, wonderful place to be. It's not always perfect or easier. It doesn't come with awards or whatever else necessarily. But if you can get to a place where you feel like you are enough, the rest of it is so easy. And that's what I would just try to get, especially women, because I think we have to meet a higher standard sometimes as leaders, but you are enough.
Yeah.
And be comfortable with that. And then you can be fearless.
Yes.
Right. Once you know that you're enough, fearless and supportive, and not worrying like, oh, Bridget's getting they liked her plan better than mine. I don't care. They like Bridget's plan and she's another woman and fantastic, but that's a place that we have to get to. And I'm just eternally grateful that I found that place.
Yeah.
And I just hope and pray that other women can know that you are enough. No matter what you're doing, you're enough. Yeah. Make yourself better, however you're going to make yourself better, but you're enough.
I could not agree more. Now, I am going to ask you a trick question only because I know, some personal stuff about you.
Yes.
When talking about, you come to a place of enough, can you ever have enough Frenchies?
Oh, no. Here's the problem is, I'm married to another veterinarian, Bob Murtaugh. Yeah. So the two of us have zero guardrails.
Yeah.
There's no one in our family to put the brakes on anything. Yeah. So we just now got another a little Frenchie puppy that was a parvo survivor with Austin Pets Alive, an amazing a group of folks down there. And the call was, hey, here's a little Frenchie that Ellen Jefferson called us about, what do you think? I was like, get it.
Yeah.
So there's no, so we have 8 dogs.
Yeah.
And 10 horses and 4 cows and 4 rescue goats and chickens. And,
Yeah.
we're up to about 33 now. And I think fortunately we have enough land and all to put them on. But Frenchies are special and they're fearless. The thing I love about Frenchies is they are comedians. They're happy, but they are fearless.
They're crazy. I have 3. I actually wore this shirt in your honor because you're one of 2 that would appreciate it.
I got one down here laying to the right of me, but.
And, I saw a post weeks ago and it made me laugh because it said something like, if you are a person that says a Frenchie is your service dog, you are not coloring with a full pack of crayons. And I was like, you know what? Fair. And you're right. They are the first small breed I've ever owned in my life. I love them. They're little monsters and they're cute and they're crazy and they are fearless.
Oh yeah, we've got a pug who's had a really hard life. She's got some issues and the other dogs kind of steer clear of her, but the Frenchies just go up and when she's being ornery, they'll just like grab her around the collar and drag her around and like, oh, go have some fun, and I love that personality trait.
Yeah. Well, Jill, thank you so much for your time. It was so wonderful to connect with you and really just be able to have this conversation. So thank you. And I look forward to more episodes to come with you as well.
I'm absolutely honored and good luck with all your doctoral work.
Yes, it will be done this year.
All right. Thanks, Bridget.
Thank you.